Did you know there are mountains on Earth where the ground rises so violently that entire peaks gain their height in a single, uninterrupted surge? Welcome to a list of the most insanely steep mountains in the world. Every mountain here is defined by the same thing: extreme vertical rise over a very short distance. Some rise abruptly from deep river gorges. Others climb straight out of flat plains or directly from the sea. One mountain here rises almost vertically from the Alaskan Ocean waters. Another explodes upward from one of the deepest canyons on the planet. And the final mountain gains more height from base to summit than almost anywhere else on land. But first, let's start in the United States, with a mountain that shows just how deceptive steepness can be. A peak that rises higher from its base than Mount Everest does. Denali stands in the interior of Alaska, isolated from any other major mountain group, rising alone above hundreds of kilometers of low tundra and forest. Its summit reaches 6,190 meters, or 20,310 feet above sea level. What places Denali on this list is how much of that height you must climb from the ground up. Unlike many high mountains that sit on elevated plateaus or clustered ridges, Denali rises directly from land that is only a few hundred meters above sea level. From base to summit, the mountain gains roughly 5,500 meters, or about 18,000 feet, of continuous vertical rise. That vertical gain is felt immediately. There are no high valleys, no intermediate shelves, and no gradual buildup. Every route involves sustained elevation gain over a long distance, with steep snow and ice slopes that never truly let up. On the north side, the Wickersham Wall drops more than 4,000 meters in a single face, making it one of the tallest continuous ice walls on the planet. Even climbers who never attempt that face are constantly aware of how aggressively the mountain rises around them. Denali's isolation also amplifies its steepness. Storm systems slam directly into the mountain, temperatures near the summit routinely fall below -40, and retreat options are limited once teams commit to higher elevations. In 1967, a sudden storm trapped climbers near the summit. 7 members of one expedition died during the descent. A reminder that steepness here is not just visual, it has consequences. Denali opens this list because it proves steepness isn't about cliffs or drama. It's about how relentlessly a mountain rises from its base, and Denali does that better than almost anywhere else on land. We're staying in Alaska, but moving south, toward the edge of the continent. This next mountain doesn't build gradually inland. It launches upward almost immediately from the coastline, climbing from cold seawater to a massive ice-covered summit in a single sweep. It's one of the fastest vertical rises on Earth, and one of the most abrupt transitions from sea level to high altitude anywhere on the planet. Mount St. Elias sits on the border between Alaska and Canada, directly above the Gulf of Alaska, where glaciers spill toward the sea and storms arrive without warning. Its summit rises to 5,489 meters, or 18,008 feet above sea level. What makes St. Elias extraordinary is how little distance it takes to reach that height. From tidewater to summit, the mountain gains roughly 5,500 meters of vertical rise in about 16 kilometers. There are very few places on Earth where the transition from sea level to extreme altitude happens this fast. There is no inland approach and no gradual buildup. The mountain rises immediately and aggressively from the coast, with steep, heavily glaciated slopes that angle sharply upward from the ocean. The lower elevations are battered by moisture coming straight off the Pacific, while the upper mountain is locked in cold, high-altitude conditions. This creates a uniquely hostile environment. Heavy snowfall loads the slopes, visibility can disappear in minutes, and avalanches are common. Even experienced climbers are forced to move quickly through exposed terrain, knowing that weather windows are short and retreat routes are limited. Mount St. Elias was first climbed in 1897, but it remains one of the least visited major peaks in North America. Its remoteness, constant storms, and sheer vertical rise keep it off most climbers' lists. St. Elias earns its place here because of how violently it rises from the earth. From ocean water to ice-covered summit, the mountain compresses nearly its entire height into a single uninterrupted climb, one of the most extreme examples of steepness on the planet. Now we leave the cold coastlines of Alaska and move halfway around the world. From glaciers and ocean storms, we head into the heart of the Himalayas. The next mountain doesn't rise from the sea, it rises suddenly from subtropical valleys, standing alone, sharply shaped and instantly recognizable. And unlike the mountains before it, this one has never been climbed. Machapuchare rises in central Nepal, just south of the main Annapurna range, standing apart from the highest Himalayan ridges rather than blending into them. Its summit reaches 6,993 meters, or 22,943 feet above sea level. What earns Machapuchare a place on this list is how abruptly it rises from its surroundings. The valleys below the mountain sit at around 800 meters above sea level. From there, Machapuchare gains more than 6,000 meters, roughly 20,000 feet, of vertical rise in a very short horizontal distance. There is no elevated plateau and no gradual approach. The climb begins almost immediately from low terrain and never truly eases. This extreme rise is compressed into a narrow mountain profile. Machapuchare's ridges and faces fall directly into deep valleys, giving the peak its sharp, fishtail silhouette. The mountain feels tall not because of its absolute height, but because so much elevation is gained so quickly. In 1957, a British expedition led by Jimmy Roberts attempted the mountain and reached within about 46 meters of the summit. The team turned back voluntarily, honoring local beliefs that Machapuchare is sacred to the god Shiva. Shortly afterward, the Nepali government formally closed the mountain to climbing, and it has remained officially unclimbed ever since. Because of that, the mountain has never been altered by summit traffic or fixed routes. Its steep faces remain untouched exactly as they rise above the valley. Now we move east along the Himalayas to a place where a major river doesn't flow around the mountains. It cuts straight through them. Here, the land collapses into one of the deepest river gorges on Earth, and a single peak rises directly out of that void. This next mountain isn't just steep. It stands at the edge of a canyon so deep that the full height of the peak is revealed all at once, from river level to summit. Namcha Barwa rises at the eastern edge of the Himalayas, in southeastern Tibet, at a place where the Yarlung Tsangpo River makes a dramatic bend and cuts directly through the mountain range instead of flowing around it. The summit reaches 7,782 meters, or 25,520 feet above sea level. What places Namcha Barwa on this list is not just its height, but what lies directly beneath it. At the base of the mountain, the Yarlung Tsangpo River flows at roughly 700 to 800 meters above sea level. From that point, Namcha Barwa rises more than 6,000 meters, over 19,000 feet, in an extremely short horizontal distance. There is no high plateau, no wide alpine basin, and no gradual buildup. The mountain rises straight out of dense forest and deep canyon terrain. This creates one of the most extreme examples of local relief on land. Standing near the river, the entire vertical extent of the mountain is visible at once, from subtropical vegetation to permanent snow and ice at the summit. For decades, Namcha Barwa was considered nearly inaccessible. Its remote location, unstable weather, and sheer walls kept it unclimbed long after other major Himalayan peaks had been reached. The first and only confirmed ascent came in 1992, when a joint Chinese-Japanese expedition finally reached the summit after a long and complex climb. That ascent required establishing camps in some of the most isolated terrain in the Himalayas, with constant exposure to avalanches, heavy snowfall, and sudden storms funneled through the gorge below. Since that climb, no additional ascents have been officially verified in major mountaineering records. Now we move west along the Himalayas, away from deep jungle gorges, and into a range known for sheer walls and deadly terrain. The next mountain doesn't just rise steeply from the land, it rises above one of the deepest valleys on Earth, with massive faces that have defined some of the most dangerous climbs in mountaineering history. This is a mountain where steepness isn't just visible, it has a body count. Annapurna I rises in central Nepal, forming the western anchor of the Annapurna Range, directly above the Kali Gandaki Valley, one of the deepest valleys on Earth. The summit reaches 8,091 meters, or 26,545 feet above sea level. What earns Annapurna its place on this list is how abruptly that height is gained. The Kali Gandaki flows at roughly 2,500 meters above sea level. From that valley floor, Annapurna rises more than 5,500 meters in a relatively short horizontal distance. There is no gradual buildup toward the mountain. The terrain steepens quickly, and the mountain presents itself as a massive wall of rock, ice, and snow. The most striking feature is the south face. It rises approximately 3,000 meters almost continuously, forming one of the largest and steepest mountain faces on the planet. This face alone is enough to define Annapurna's reputation, but it sits on top of an already extreme base-to-summit rise. Annapurna was the first mountain over 8,000 meters ever climbed. In 1950, a French expedition led by Maurice Herzog reached the summit, opening a new era in high-altitude mountaineering. The success came at a high cost. Herzog and several team members suffered severe frostbite during the descent, and the expedition barely survived the retreat. Over time, Annapurna became known for its fatality rate. Avalanches, sérac collapses, and steep, unstable slopes have claimed many lives, even on relatively standard routes. For decades, Annapurna had the highest death-to-summit ratio of any major Himalayan peak. Annapurna earns its place on this list because of how steeply and relentlessly it rises from its surroundings. From a deep river valley to one of the highest summits on Earth, the mountain compresses enormous vertical gain into terrain that offers little margin for error. We're staying in the same valley, but shifting our focus to the opposite side. Across the Kali Gandaki, another mountain rises just as abruptly, but with a very different shape and history. This next peak forms the other wall of one of the deepest valleys on Earth, climbing out of the same river corridor with even broader, more exposed slopes. What you're about to see is not a single face, but an entire mountain that rises steeply in every direction. Dhaulagiri rises on the western side of the Kali Gandaki Valley in Nepal, directly opposite the Annapurna Range. The two mountains face each other across one of the deepest valleys on Earth, with the river flowing far below between them. The summit of Dhaulagiri reaches 8,167 meters, or 26,795 feet above sea level. What places Dhaulagiri on this list is how much height it gains from that single valley system. The Kali Gandaki flows at roughly 2,500 meters above sea level. From that point, Dhaulagiri rises more than 5,600 meters in a relatively short horizontal distance. Unlike Annapurna's dominant south face, Dhaulagiri's steepness is spread across the entire mountain. Its slopes rise aggressively on all sides, forming a massive exposed pyramid. Approaching from the valley, there is no sense of a gradual mountain. The terrain steepens quickly, and the summit feels stacked directly on top of the river corridor below. Dhaulagiri was once believed to be the highest mountain on Earth, before better surveying revealed even taller peaks farther east. It remained unclimbed until 1960, when a Swiss-Austrian expedition finally reached the summit. That expedition made history by using a small aircraft to deliver supplies high on the mountain, the first time aviation was used in a Himalayan climb. The experiment nearly ended in disaster when the plane crashed during a landing attempt, leaving the team stranded at altitude. Despite this, the climbers pushed on and succeeded, cementing Dhaulagiri's place in mountaineering history. Now we leave Nepal and move west into the Karakoram, where the terrain becomes sharper, drier, and even more compressed. Here, one of the world's great rivers cuts directly along the base of the mountains, leaving almost no space between valley floor and summit. The next peak rises straight out of the Indus River corridor, a mountain where the full climb begins almost at river level and never gives you a break. Haramosh Peak stands in northern Pakistan within the Karakoram range, isolated and compact, rising as a single dominant mass rather than part of a broad ridge system. The summit reaches 7,409 meters, or 24,308 feet above sea level. What earns Haramosh its place on this list is how much of that height is gained from extremely low ground. Along the base of the mountain, the Indus River flows at roughly 1,000 to 1,200 meters above sea level. From there, Haramosh rises by more than 6,000 meters, nearly 20,000 feet, in one continuous climb. There is almost no transition zone between valley floor and high alpine terrain. This creates sustained steepness from the very start. Ridges and faces rise directly from the valley, forcing climbers onto exposed ground almost immediately. There are no wide basins, no forgiving approaches, and very few places to rest or retreat. Haramosh became notorious in 1957 during a British expedition that ended in tragedy. 2 climbers were killed during the attempt, and the survivors narrowly escaped after severe frostbite and exhaustion. The incident later became one of the most well-known cautionary stories in Karakoram mountaineering. The mountain was first successfully climbed the following year, but it has never become a popular objective. Its steep terrain, complex structure, and direct rise from low elevation keep it rarely attempted even today. Haramosh earns its place here because of how much vertical gain it demands from such low ground. Few mountains compress over 6,000 meters of elevation into such a short, unforgiving climb. We stay in northern Pakistan, but move into a valley where villages, roads, and farmland sit directly beneath a single massive wall of ice and rock. Here, the mountain doesn't hide behind ridges or foothills. It rises in full view, dominating the landscape from the valley floor upward. This next peak is famous not for one face, but for how unbroken its climb is. A mountain where nearly the entire ascent happens in one continuous rise. Rakaposhi rises in northern Pakistan above the Hunza Valley, where towns, farmland, and roads sit almost directly beneath its slopes. Unlike many large mountains that are partially hidden by ridges, Rakaposhi stands fully exposed, dominating the valley from the moment it comes into view. The summit reaches 7,788 meters, or 25,551 feet above sea level. What places Rakaposhi this high on the list is how much elevation it gains in one continuous sweep. The Hunza River flows at roughly 1,700 to 1,800 meters above sea level. From that valley floor, Rakaposhi rises by around 6,000 meters, close to 19,600 feet, over a horizontal distance of only about 11 kilometers or less than 7 miles. There are no major breaks in the terrain. The mountain climbs almost uninterrupted from valley to summit, and it's often called the only peak on Earth that descends directly and without interruption for almost 6,000 meters. The slope is sustained, broad, and steep for its entire height, creating a sense that the summit is stacked directly on top of the valley below. Because of this, Rakaposhi has a long history of failed attempts. Its massive faces are heavily glaciated and prone to avalanches, and storms often form directly over the mountain as moist air rises rapidly along its steep slopes. The first successful ascent came in 1958, after several expeditions had failed. Even that climb ended with severe frostbite for the summit team, and Rakaposhi saw no repeat ascent for more than 20 years afterward. Rakaposhi earns its place here because of how clean and overwhelming its rise is. Few mountains present such an enormous, uninterrupted gain in elevation so close to where people live, with the full scale of the climb visible from the valley floor. We finish where the rise becomes the most extreme. Still following the Indus River, the terrain tightens even further, and one mountain stands completely alone at the western edge of the Himalayas. Here, the valley drops away so fast that the mountain's steepest side is visible almost in its entirety. A single wall rising thousands of meters without interruption. This final peak is not just steep. It is defined by one of the largest continuous rises on Earth. Nanga Parbat stands at the western edge of the Himalayas in northern Pakistan, isolated from other high peaks and rising alone above the Indus River Valley. Its position marks a hard boundary, where the great mountain ranges begin to break apart. The summit reaches 8,126 meters, or 26,660 feet above sea level. What places Nanga Parbat at the end of this list is the scale and intensity of its vertical rise. Along the Indus River, the valley floor sits at roughly 1,000 to 1,200 meters above sea level. From that point, Nanga Parbat rises by more than 7,000 meters, or over 23,000 feet, in an extremely short horizontal distance. There are no other places on Earth where a mountain gains that much height so abruptly from such low ground. The most extreme expression of this rise is the Rupal face on the south side of the mountain. It climbs approximately 4,600 meters in a single, continuous wall of rock, ice, and snow, making it one of the largest mountain faces on the planet. From the valley below, the face fills the entire skyline. This steepness has shaped Nanga Parbat's history. For decades, attempts on the mountain ended in disaster. By the early 1950s, more than 30 climbers had died on its slopes, earning it the nickname the Killer Mountain. The first successful ascent came in 1953, when Austrian climber Hermann Buhl reached the summit alone, without supplemental oxygen. He spent the night standing on a small ledge near the top, unable to descend in the dark, before completing one of the most remarkable solo descents in mountaineering history. Even today, Nanga Parbat remains unforgiving. Its steep faces, unstable glaciers, and direct rise from the Indus River leave little room for error. Nanga Parbat earns its place at the end of this list because of how completely it dominates its surroundings. From river level to summit, it compresses one of the largest vertical rises on Earth into a single relentless mountain. After all of this, one question remains. Do you think any mountain on this list feels steeper than the rest? And would you ever attempt to climb any of those giants? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Also check out my other stuff about mountains and extreme geography. Thanks for watching.